other than that, I mean, we're crazy.
Just don't lock anybody up.
Just give me a lot of
What do you
money.
mean it's not there? What do you- Yeah.
24 million.
They got in there before we did.
Yeah.
It's only money.
Small change.
Yeah, I said I needed 24 million, and John said, all I got's a 50, you got change. Wistfully, you know, we're staying off the radar because the North Valleys are taking all the attention. I feel like a James Bond movie.
What's? I didn't know what it was for a second.
Now,
It's like, do we spring a leak? What?
Test, 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 test,
You.
test.
Yeah, pretty good. Mixed bag, actually. How about you?
Test, test. Somebody just turned it off.
Me too. Me too. For example? In other
Should be
words,
good and
what
go.
is it?
Oh,
Exemplary
I'm
tui.
sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. That was funny. I'm sorry.
I'd like to call this Northern Nevada Water Planning Commission meeting to order, Wednesday, February 5th. Need roll call.
Danielle Henderson. Michael Widmer. Bill Hauk. Michael Drinkwater.
Here.
John Enlow.
Here.
John Flansburgh.
Here.
Mickey Hazelwood.
Here.
John Martini. John Combs.
Here.
Dave Solero. Marvin Wright Jr.
Here.
John Zimmerman. And non-voting members, Harry Fonistock, Thomas Payette, Mylin Nagoyan, Cindy Turchik, Ron Penrose. We have a quorum. Oh, I didn't.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the public comments. I don't have any cards at this time for this portion on the agenda, so if anybody wants to make a public comment. Seeing no one, we'll move on then to item number 3, approval of the agenda.
Move to approve.
Got a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve by Mr. Flansburgh, seconded by Mr. Enlow. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from November 6th and December 4th, 2019. I think we'll take one at a time. I'll start with November 6th. Any questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve. Motion to approve, we got a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion
One
carries.
abstention.
Oh,
I did not attend the meeting, so I'll abstain.
excuse me, one abstention, Mr. Flansburgh.
Can you tell me who made the motion and who seconded?
Mr. Zimmerman made the motion, Mr. Hauk seconded. Okay, the next set of minutes is for December 4th, 2019. Any questions, any comments?
Chairman Wright, I will abstain from this one because I was also absent for this meeting.
Okay,
I should also abstain.
okay. Okay, if there are no questions, comments, or changes needed, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Drinkwater, seconded by Mr. Zimmerman. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, motion carries. Moving on to item number 5, the review of the draft fiscal year 2020-2021 Regional Water Commission tentative budget, discussion and possible direction to staff and possible recommendation to the Western Regional Water Commission to approve the tentative budget. Chris Wessel, Jim Zimmerman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, it's that time of year again for our budget review, and based on our priorities and setting and a variety of other input, we've put together this 2021 fiscal year budget. I'll just run through it real quickly, and then we'll open it up for any comments and questions or discussion that you have. Starting here on page 1 on the attachments that you have in your packet, you'll see under budget category, it talks about revenue. Our anticipated revenue is going to be about $1.6 million. We do not have any grants or other revenues. Our estimated interest income will be approximately $28,000. That's just pretty much a guess based on investment portfolio. And so our revenue should be about 1.6 million and change. So our professional services, and we begin with our expense side. Our estimated professional services for the year is just over $2 million. Staff services, for both staff service and non-staff services outlined on page 3, is just around $600,000. That gives us a total expense of $2.64 million for the year. We do the math between the two, you'll see we have a net deficit or decrease in cash reserves of $1 million anticipated based on the budget. So moving down below that to the budget analysis, if we take a look at whether we can actually do that, so we look at our cash balance at the beginning of this year, it was just over 1.4 million. Our estimated cash revenue inflow was just over 1.5 million. Our estimated expenditures are just under 1.7 million, and this left us with a balance of 1.3 million in cash reserve at the beginning of the next the FY 2021 budget fiscal year. So that would be our starting balance. If we subtract the $1 million in net cash reserve decrease, we'd end up with just under $300,000. We are required, as a matter of policy, that we have to maintain half our 6 months of operating budget. So that's half our routine operating budget. That would have come to about $291,000. So just that pretty much hit the mark right on the bat. So moving on, I suspect that if you have any comments or questions, it'll probably be on the tentative professional service budget detail. So I'm not going to go into that in detail because I'm sure you'll ask whatever questions you want. Some things of note that you might be interested in: there's the Long Valley Creek feasibility study at $100,000. And also under regional stormwater, we have the Steamboat Ditch Flood Study. It was a $160,000 contract. About $100,000 would be left at the end of this year, assuming the contract gets initiated. Also, there's the Lemon Valley Flood Mapping Project. We anticipate spending about half of that this year, the other half in this next fiscal year. some money in there for closed basin flooding. Also, the water management plan is in at about $150,000. We do anticipate letting some contracts to aid in that development. And we do have a contingency fund of $360,000. The Western Regional Water Commission deemed that seemed appropriate, and they seem to like the idea of having contingency funds, so we are starting to keep one in our tentative budget professional services detail. So moving on to page 3, you'll see the routine operating budget. This has not really changed much from last year, so pretty much we show have employees in Washoe County overhead and mileage expenses, and then under non-staff services, things from minutes, tech services, web hosting, video, our audit and our training, travel budget, and advertising and miscellaneous operating. So these are pretty standard. The one thing I would point out to you is you'll probably see there's a temporary service, manpower temporary employees. That's a contingency to allow us to bring back people who are on the short list or getting shorter by the day here, like Mr. Smitherman, to help us with the budget, or help us with putting the plan back, updating the plan. And there's some other employees who left that may be valuable in that also. So manpower, temporary employee services, the way we do that. And then on the back page, I would just point out page 4 is just our estimate to complete for the year. And that's pretty much all I have, Mr. Chair. If you have any questions, or feel free to discuss and deliberate as you wish.
Before I ask for any questions, just ask Mr. Smitherman if you have anything you want to add.
No, nothing to add for me, but ready to field questions if there are any.
Okay. So are there any questions from the commission? Yes, Mr. Drinkwater.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have 2 lines of inquiry, but Mr. Wessel, first, there are 4 line items that have $0 assigned to them, but all indicate we're waiting on a proposal from some entity. Should that proposal be forthcoming, what's the plan?
Well, that would be the opportunity to utilize the contingency funds. We don't have, some of these are projects anticipated, some of them not sure whether we have some overages that we may have to cover. And the climate variability analysis, that had a lot of fairly high vote count, was fairly high in the vote count during our priority setting process, so I've left that in there just as a placeholder. And cloud seeding, I anticipate that to come off, for the tentative budget, assuming nobody puts anything in there. We can remove them if that's bothersome.
No, I just wanted to understand,
Yeah.
we have, the 4 I were referring to all say some version of, for
Yeah.
example, stormwater GIS mapping pending project proposal, TMRPA, Reno Sparks, Washoe County. Okay, if that proposal shows up, there's no money assigned to that right now. What's the intent?
Yeah.
And the intent is to go to the contingency for that.
I think so, yeah, that would be fine. That's what we're anticipating, yeah.
Okay. My second one involves One Truckee River for 10% of our operating fund. This is a brand-new expenditure for us, so I'd like to know a little bit more about what we expect to get out of that investment. And is this a one-off, or is this something we expect to see every year?
Well, you want to, okay. Okay, well, we did receive a budget from them, and we have had some discussions with various staff about the possibility of funding them and supporting the entity. They are going to form as a 501c3, and they have at least they have some operating budget, I think, from Truckee River Fund, but really they don't have any other at this time. And so we've slotted money in there. I don't have a contract, or, we haven't been asked formally for any monies as of this moment, but we've slotted some funding in there, and that was the amount they had listed for their operations budget.
So if I could add, what we get for that would be the activities that they take having to do with water quality along the Truckee River, especially upstream of, say, the Glendale treatment plant. I know that Tumwa has been a supporter through the Truckee River Fund, and we've been talking with them and with One Truckee River about finding them a permanent home and something better than soft money to help them implement what they've written as their Truckee River management plan. So I wasn't there at the priority setting meeting, but I understand that topic garnered quite a few votes. So
Right.
we're just trying to make the budget follow the priority setting.
Understood. We're looking at your cash flow analysis on page 1. Next year is going to be, as anticipated funds come to fruition, it's going to be a little thinner, which means if this is an expectation, an annual expectation from One Truckee River, that gets to be a bigger bite out of the apple every year. And I just wanted,
Agree, yeah.
because this is the first time we've seen this in the operation budget, I wanted to have that conversation be clear. And if we approve it, and I know One Truckee River, and I was, I'm not saying it's a bad investment, I just want to make sure we understand what we're being asked to invest in.
As far as an ongoing expense, I would expect that if things go according to the discussions that we've had with One Truckee River, this would be something that would show up in subsequent years, but the amount might change. This budget amount might be the highest that we see, because if they can gain some permanent funding, then that frees up their staff to go seek grant money and other augmentation that could help with their operating budget. So nothing firm at this point, but I think that's the concept.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any more questions from the commission?
I have.
Yes, Mr. Enlow.
So I just wanted to point out, we've got $40,000 identified in the Bedell Flat infiltration project, and you could eliminate that.
Okay.
Because we've done enough work to determine that that project site is not feasible for the intended purpose.
Okay.
Okay, any more questions?
Just real quickly, do you anticipate that being eliminated, the whole project being eliminated?
Eliminate.
Okay, very good, thanks.
Mr. Flansburgh?
Thank you. Looking through the budget, I'm in favor of things as they're outlined in here. I recognize the concern. I'm assuming that the One Truckee River contract, when that's completed, it will come before us for the recommendation then to go to the Western Regional Water Commission.
That's correct.
Okay, so with that understanding and with the other discussions that we've had, I would recommend that we move the 40,000 for Bedell Flat down into the contingency to make that 400,000. That seems to be prudent that we have that contingency funding there. We know that we're putting money into the comprehensive plan. We have that update coming forward. That makes a lot of sense. And with those comments, I don't have any further questions, and I'm prepared to make a motion if you're ready for one.
Any more questions from the commission? Comments? I do have a public comment form information card for Mr. Michael DiMartini for item number 5.
Thank you, Chairman and Commissioners. I just have a very brief comment on this, and that is that they're at the voting meeting, because of an erratic that occurred where the reappointment didn't go forward as quickly as the budget went forward. The domestic well owners were not able to vote on the budgetary items, so there was like no representation in the vote of the budget. And to the extent that the domestic well owner thought to be representative of that time, made comments at that meeting, I would like those full comments to go forward to the Western Regional Commission with the record. The minutes are an abbreviation of what was said. I think there was additional emphasis made at the hearing regarding some support for the domestic well owners regarding some of the problems they're having with bad water quality and flooding and those type of things. So thank you very much.
Thank you. The action for this agenda item is to approve the tentative budget. So if there are no more questions or comments, I'll entertain a motion to approve the tentative budget.
Motion to approve the tentative budget, recognizing that there is money set aside for closed basin flooding. There's also money set aside for A+, as well as the other items that have been outlined with the suggestion, or with the motion to also move the 40,000 from Bedell Flat infiltration to the contingency portion. And that would be my motion.
Okay, we have a second.
Second.
Seconded, we got a motion by Mr. Flansburgh, seconded by Mr. Enlow to approve the tentative budget. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Okay, we'll move on to item number 6, discussion concerning the Comprehensive Regional Water Management Plan, 2021 update, possible direction to staff. Jim Smitherman, Chris Wessel.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'll take this particular item. So this item came to you in December, as you may recall, and it basically was an outline of the plan as we anticipated it at that time, and kind of an idea of our timeframes and the cost. Subsequent to that meeting, staff got together and we started contemplating the priorities and the amount of time and effort spent on a variety of different things in the plan. And it occurred to us that it might be prudent for us to consider splitting one of the chapters, specifically chapter 4. It was wastewater and watershed water quality chapter into 2 separate chapters. Basically, effluent management, wastewater effluent management chapter, and then a second chapter called stormwater and water quality. The reasoning behind this was that we anticipate probably some significant updated language in the effluent management portion of the plan, seeing as how that's a significant element of discussion at the current time. So that's really the only change here, and we want to bring that back for your consideration and deliberation on that. And so pretty much that's what we're here to. If you have any further comments with regards to the plan, this is kind of an open discussion on that.
Okay, are there any questions or comments from the commission?
I just have a comment.
Yes, Mr. Enlow.
So Jim and Chris, at the last Western Regional Water Commission meeting, there was considerable discussion on the plan update. And really looking at, I think a lot of the emphasis was on stormwater flooding, particularly closed basin flooding, that type of thing. And I think my perception is they left with a perception that all of those issues were going to be addressed in the plan update, which I don't think is necessarily a reasonable expectation, but I think it could be what we've done in the past, as I recall, is there would be action items identified on priority issues that will be addressed and a timeline provided. I mean, is that how you're thinking about moving this forward, or are you going to try to hit some of the high priority items that they brought up at that meeting?
Yeah, I know we got into that. We started down that line, and I haven't got a full assessment from the various commissioners of what they really want to see in that, but I agree there's a timeline issue on this, and I am concerned about that. One of the things we were thinking is perhaps letting a contract to try and have somebody develop some kind of a discussion on that in the plan. It might be a good idea. I mean, that's an excellent suggestion. Maybe we do it as an action. I hadn't thought about that, but that's not a bad idea, actually.
Yeah, I think at a minimum, what we have to do is describe what we understand right now.
Yeah.
And so that'll be probably quite a bit more text in that flood management and drainage chapter. And then, as Chris had said, we've talked about maybe going to one of the consulting firms in town, engineering firms in town that has flood control expertise, and maybe get some alternatives from them that you could deliberate on. That's something that we could do within the time frame of the plan update. And so maybe explain where we are now and how that differs from where we were 5 years ago, because 5 years ago, the closed basin flooding really was not a front burner issue. Now it definitely is. And then one of the things that we heard from the Western Regional Water Commission was this concept of having a regional drainage facilities study. And we've just taken the first step with that, as you know, with regional planning, doing kind of a gap analysis of where the GIS coverage might be lacking. And so we need to take the next step there. We could either, I don't know if we can get that done. That's a big project. So at least it could be something that's in the final chapter of the plan, where there are action items that are delineated. So that's where we would, everything that we can't get done, that's where we would put it, is try to prioritize it as far as action items to accomplish during the term of the next 5-year plan.
Are there any more questions from the commission? Mr. Flansburgh.
So, Jim, I think there has been some movement on the closed basin, and some things that could be added into the regional water management plan. There's some changes proposed for the regional drainage manual and some things like that that would fit and tie into that discussion. And I definitely agree that the wastewater effluent management and the stormwater water quality items deserve their own chapters. There's enough in there for that. So I agree with what you have here, and I'm ready to make a motion.
Okay. Any other comments or questions from the commission? So I'll entertain a motion to accept this report and to provide any direction to the staff as appropriate.
So moved.
Got a motion by Mr. Flansburgh. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Zimmerman. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. We move on now to item number 7, review of the Western Regional Water Commission Resolution Number 5, Adoption Facility Conformance Review Procedures dated April 16, 2014, discussion and possible direction to staff, and possible recommendation to Western Regional Water Commission. Jim Smitherman.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. So on this item, for reasons that I explained in the first couple paragraphs of the staff report, I was prompted to look pretty closely at our conformance review procedures that were adopted by resolution in 2014 by the Western Regional Water Commission. They've also been incorporated into the policy section of the existing Regional Water Management Plan. So one of the questions, well, let's see. In my review, and then after some discussion with council, I think the policies could be better. And I'll take responsibility for some of that because I wrote the policies, but then when I was going through them late last year, some of the things didn't really line up with the way that I think that the statute is interpreted, and really in smooth understanding of what a conformance is. So really what a conformance review is. So the topics that I'm left with after looking at this closely is making a clear determination and offering guidance as far as exactly what triggers a facility conformance review with respect to the regional water plan. The statute clearly speaks to the kind of the size or capacity of a facility that would be subject to a review as major and or regional in size or significance. And so I think our procedures could probably offer better guidance as far as what constitutes a major or regional facility, maybe by type of facility or maybe by the size or the capacity. Now, if you've had a chance to look at the resolution, the attachment to the resolution or the actual procedures, there are some criteria in there that we kind of identified as these may be things that would trigger a conformance review. Some of them are pretty specific and some of them are fairly vague. And so I think we could do a better job. And in reading through the statute and the plan requiring the Northern Nevada Water Planning Commission to include any water resource plans of any of the utilities, it kind of points to the utilities as the entities who might best offer the guidance as far as what kind of facility, what size or capacity facility would be subject to a review, since those utilities would be the ones that would be proposing construction of the facilities in the first place. And then also, I think the staff's role in the conformance review process is probably a little bit off base. And so if you want specifics, I can go there, but just in summary, I think that that after consulting with utilities and maybe legal counsel, I could probably bring you back revisions to that set of procedures that would be more in line with what the statute says. So, as I said, Resolution 5 is attached to the staff report. If you have any questions about that, or if you have questions about the staff report and what led me to review the procedures, I'd be happy to address any of those as well. I've kind of rethought what I'm seeking today. And so if it's consistent enough with the recommendation, really what I'd be looking for today would be your direction to maybe get together with the utilities and talk with them about refining the criteria. So we've got more clear guidance as far as what kind of facility would be subject to a review and what wouldn't. And then run that by council along with revisions to the procedures. And then at some point in the future, after all that's done, bring back recommendations for revisions to the attachment to Resolution 5. And that would be for recommendation to the Western Regional Water Commission. So I understand that it's been a long time since we've had a conformance review. In fact, I don't know that we've done one as the Northern Nevada Water Planning Commission. There have been a couple of determinations made by staff where something didn't rise to the level of needing a conformance review, but that's about it. I think the last time that I was involved in a review, it was prior to 2007 under the former Regional Water Planning Commission. And the magnitude of projects that were reviewed for conformance were the water importation projects, the Fish Springs water importation project, and then following that, the Intermountain importation project, which hasn't come to fruition as of date. But those are the only two, I think, that were reviewed at least within the last 10 years or so. So keeping in mind that the order of magnitude of that kind of a project, that's probably, I think, what closer to what the legislature had in mind. So if you would like, more explanation as far as really what a conformance review is, what it consists of, I could probably generalize it, but it's listed in the Western Regional Water Commission Act under Section 51, if you'd like the reference, or anything else. I think I would go ahead and turn it back to you, Mr. Chairman, for questions or discussion among the commission.
Are there any questions, comments from the commission? Mr. Wessel, or Mr. Enlow? Yeah, I was just going to make a comment on this letter that Mr. Wessel handed out prior to the meeting here this afternoon. It is a letter for the Meridian Company, Civil Engineering, Michael DiMartini. So if there are no questions or comments, I do have a public comment information card from Mr. DiMartini. So if you'd like to come up and make your comment.
Thank you again, Chairman Wright, for this opportunity to speak to the commission. Michael DiMartini, a professional engineer, and I'm going to try to go through this letter like really fast, but it could take maybe an extra minute. I just got an eye operation about 10 days ago, and so my eyes are just starting to clear up without glasses. So great. So this is on item 7, and as a citizen of Washoe County, civil engineer, as a property owner, and on behalf of various property owners in Cold Springs Valley and Washoe County, I hereby make the following comments for your consideration and the record. I have reviewed the staff report and concur that the improvements to the language of the conformance review procedures are warranted. However, it should be noted that the current resolution has been in full force and effect since it was adopted on April 16, 2014, and until it is amended, it should be and has been complied with. The staff report notes that the Regional Water Management Plan, Northern Nevada Water Planning Commission staff, excuse me, I meant to say, I guess the Regional Water Planning, Western Regional Water Planning Commission and Northern Nevada Water Planning Commission staff commented to Reno that 2 300,000-gallon equalizing tanks proposed for a water main to Cold Springs Valley would be of such kind and of such size as to affect the working of the regional water, or excuse me, would not be of such kind to affect the working of the Regional Water Management Plan, as distinct from providing normal service to customers, and as such, do not trigger conformance review. I disagree with that characterization, since the equalization tanks were reported as being solely necessary to support the importation of up to 2,000 acre-feet of water to Cold Springs, and since the adopted resolution sets forth, among other reasons, that justify conformance review, the facility's increasing existing capacity by more than 625 acre-feet of water supply per year may affect the workings of the plan. And I believe they do. The staff report notes in several areas that discussions were held with the Northern Nevada Water Planning Commission, the Western Regional Water Commission, legal counsel, that revisions were necessary. However, the details of those discussions were not reiterated specifically. The concern I have is that the legal counsel referenced is apparently Mr. Michael Ponye and the McDonald Carano law firm. The person and the firm are also representing, among others, Tumwa and Heinz Holdco. The developer of the 5,000-unit Stonegate project in Cold Springs, and appeared for Heinz at Reno Council and has appeared representing Heinz in the 2nd Judicial District Court in case number CV 20-00096 regarding an issue of the Regional Water Management Plan conformance. As a Washoe County citizen and taxpayer supporting the legal counsel of the Northern Nevada Water Planning Commission and the Western Regional Water Planning Commission, I disagree with representation of those entities by the same legal representative of the developer Heinz Holdco LLC and or Tumwa, and believe that there should be no advice provided to the commission or staff by that legal representative, and that any prior relevant or advice or communication should be stricken. Additionally, I would ask that all and any way related communications with the Water Planning Commission staff or Tumwa or the Western Regional Water Planning Commission be disclosed to the public. As everyone should agree, the Nevada legislature created the Western Regional Water Commission, Northern Nevada Water Planning Commission, and previous Regional Water Planning Commission of Washoe County to provide a forum for water planning and representation by and for the people. As part of this goal, it is appropriate and necessary that procedures be developed and enforced to support those goals. Of additional relevant note, in the Northern Nevada Water Planning Commission's meeting of February 1st, 2017, and I was there, the water commissioners should remember that the then current legal counsel, Mr. John Rhodes, talked about how a conformance review would be necessary regarding importation of water, specifically into Cold Springs. With that understanding, the plan was modified and approved. If you desire any more or have any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, we'll include your letter as part of the record in public comment. Are there any questions or comments from the commission?
Mr. Chair.
Yes,
So,
Mr. Drinkwater.
if Commissioner Smitherman or Mr. Wessel, so before us today, you're asking us to basically direct you to review the conformance review procedures and come back to us at a later, interview relevant parties, come back to us with a proposal on how this might be modified, right? The specific issue that Mr. DiMartini was talking about in Cold Springs is not in play today, about the two 300,000 gallon tanks that were in his letter that were proposed for the Cold Springs and the potential importation of water in Cold Springs. That's a separate issue. Is that correct?
Well, it's related. That is what prompted me to review the procedures.
Okay.
But I want to assure you that as imperfect as the procedures are and adopted, we complied with the procedures.
Okay, and then, thank you, sir. Mr. Chair, if you're looking for a motion, I'm prepared to make such a motion.
Okay. Are there any more comments or questions from the commission? Then I'll entertain the motion.
Move that we direct staff to review the procedures for conformance review and to bring forth at a future meeting recommendations for changes to such procedures.
Okay, we have a second. Second by Mr. Enlow. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. Okay, we'll move on to item number 8, which is the program manager's report from Jim Smitherman.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Program manager's report is back. I think that we neglected to put that in at least at the last meeting. So if you refer to the first page, page 8A, it's a listing of the projects that we have currently under contract. It should be pretty well up to date. Mr. Wessel says yes. And so you can see that there are some of the projects are zero complete, so those are getting rolling. Others are partially complete. If you have questions about any of these in particular, I'd be happy to answer them or refer them to Mr. Wessel as he's managing some of the projects. And then let's see, the financial status report is through period 7, so that would be half a fiscal year through January 2020. It looks like that we are not quite up to our revenue projections, but in the springtime, when people start using and buying more water, generally we see a pretty significant uptick in the revenue. And then as far as our expenditures budget, we're, as usual, well under budget, and so we're significantly in the black as far as our revenue and expenditures. So any questions? I'd be happy to entertain those at this point.
Are there any questions from the commission? Okay, seeing none, I will entertain a motion to accept the program manager's report. Mr. Flansburgh, motion to accept, seconded by Mr. Houck. I'm sorry, Mr. Houck, yeah. Mr. Houck, seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. Okay, item number 9, discussion regarding location and possible agenda items for March 2020, Northern Nevada Water Planning Commission meeting and other future meetings and possible direction to staff. Jim Smitherman.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Your next regularly scheduled meeting would be March 4th, and that would be at 1:30 in this location. I also would add, though, that every March, though, Western Regional Water Commission convenes a concurrent meeting with the Northern Nevada Water Planning Commission to talk about annual priorities and especially the tentative budget that you reviewed today. And so that would fall on March 18th. Last year, we did it over at Sparks City Hall in the basement training room, and that worked out really well because the Tumwell Board meets directly after the Western Regional Water Commission in the legislative chambers that are right across the courtyard. So I think that would be our plan this year. So my question to you is, since we've got a concurrent meeting scheduled for March 18th, do you want to have a meeting on the March 4th, a regular Northern Nevada Water Planning Commission meeting as well? If there's business to conduct, you can do it at the March 18th meeting. There's nothing really time-sensitive that I need to bring to you on March 4th right now, but then I see Commissioner Enlow may have a comment.
Mr. Enlow?
So is it March 18th, our Western Regional Water Commission workshop on A+?
That's February 19th.
No. Is that this month? That's right. About a month off? Okay.
Let's talk. Yeah. So Western Regional Water Commission.
Going on vacation.
Yeah, that's right. Welcome home. Western Regional Water Commission's regularly scheduled meeting for February falls on the 19th. That's when we're doing, an Category A+ reclaimed water workshop and field trip.
My mistake.
March 18th would be the concurrent meeting. Yeah. Thanks for bringing that one up too. Another commercial for the workshop. So the question to you is, Commission, do you want to have a meeting on March 4th as well? It would be a short meeting, probably with just, limited agenda items, or should we just bunch everything up onto the March 18th meeting with the Western Regional Water Commission?
Any comments, Mr. Flansburgh?
I move that we hold our next meeting on March 18th, jointly with the Western Regional Water Commission at the location to be determined, and location and time to be determined.
Yeah, good.
Okay, we have a motion to have our March meeting on March 18th in conjunction with the Western Region
Water Commission.
Water Commission. We have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. Drinkwater. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. Okay. Item number 10 is commission comments. Are there any comments from the commission?
I have a question. So there's a A+ workshop this month, later this month?
Right, February 19th. It'll be, I think a meeting will start at noon at the Truckee Mountains Water Authority, and it'll be a regular open meeting law compliant meeting of the Western Regional Water Commission.
Any other comments, Mr. Flansburgh?
Yeah, I just would announce City of Reno has the expansion of the Reno-Stead Water Reclamation Facility is out to bid as of last Friday. So we'll be expecting bids coming in March, but just for the good of the order. And then also, we've made great progress on our dewatering, Swan Lake dewatering pipeline. So the pipeline is basically complete at this point. We're working with NV Energy on getting the power in place, and we expect that we'll be able to test out the pumps and pivots in about 30 days.
Good. Any more comments? Okay, we'll move on to item number 11, staff comments.
Just one, last month at the Western Regional Water Commission's meeting, I tendered a notice of intent to retire. And so I'll give you verbal notice today that my retirement from Washoe County employment should be effective May 23rd, if all goes according to plan. There is a provision for retired employees to contract back through a temporary services entity, and so I intend to make myself available in the transition time and for purposes of the regional plan update to be available part-time to help out with that.
Did you say May 23rd?
May, right? May 23rd. So we've got 4 months. Okay, that's all unless there are other comments.
No comments.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Move on to item number 12. I don't have any public comment information cards for this part. We'll move on then, if there any other business. And I shall declare the meeting adjourned.